In the Blue Edge Mountains in Virginia, Desmond grows up with his family, including his sibling Hal, his extremely strict mother Bertha and his dad Tom, who used to be an officer. Tom battled in World War II and since he returned, he hasn't done something very similar, so Bertha needs to clear up for his children that their dad doesn't loathe them, he simply can't stand himself. Desmond and Hal get along more often than not, and they go on undertakings through the mountains together, yet they additionally get into battles that Tom permits, since then he just needs to rebuff the champ. One evening, Desmond protects himself with a block, practically killing Hal all the while. Fortunately the kid makes do, however, the experience of nearly killing somebody leaves Desmond in shock, which isn't helped by his mom. While he's helping at the neighborhood church, Desmond sees a man have a mishap in the city and races to help. In the wake of putting his belt around the man's leg as a tourniquet, Desmond takes him to the medical clinic, where the specialist acclaims Desmond for thinking rapidly on the grounds that it saved the man's life. Desmond will see the work attendants and specialists do, taking in the sensation of what saving lives is like. That day he too meets nurtured Dorothy and quickly smashes on her, in any event, tolerating to give blood on the spot to converse with her. The following day, Desmond returns to the medical clinic, dressed all pleasantly to play with Dorothy and ask her out. Their most memorable date works out in a good way and Dorothy would have favored it assuming that he had asked prior to kissing her abruptly. Since then, at that point, the two beginning having an exquisite relationship. Hal declares he's enlisted in the military to battle in World War II and didn't tell his family until the deed was done on the grounds that he realized they would be against it. He ends up being correct. Bertha could do without the thought, since killing conflicts with God's precepts, and seeing Hal in uniform triggers Tom's injury, causing him to ask his child to leave the room. Desmond tells Dorothy he needs to enroll as well, yet as a surgeon. To make things right, he chooses to request that Dorothy wed him, and she acknowledges the date they set is the point at which he gets his most memorable leave. A short time later, Desmond goes to converse with Tom, who is at the burial ground visiting the graves of his dearest companions that passed on at war. In the wake of yelling about what fools they were, Tom says he would rather not cover his children also. The day Desmond leaves for Post Jackson, Dorothy gifts him a book of scriptures with an image of her inside. When he shows up at the post, Desmond meets all his kindred privates, including Smitty. Their relegated sergeant is Hal, who shocks them all when he shows up with a yell, making Smitty drop the blade on his foot and not give time to one more private to put on some garments. Hal is a cliché sergeant that hollers at everybody for it and put downs them over their appearances, which Desmond sees as beautiful entertaining. The sergeant doesn't take the blade from Smitty's foot until he's finished hollering and makes the exposed warrior begin preparing without garments as discipline for not sprucing up in time. Yet he succeeds at the obstruction course on account of his life in the mountains. The genuine issue comes while Weapon taking care of his straightaway and he will not snatch a rifle. Hal takes Desmond to see Commander Glover at his office, where Desmond makes sense of he had been informed he wouldn't require to get a weapon and he shouldn't have be shipped off a rifle organization since he's a non-combatant, despite the fact that he considers it more to be an upright cooperator. Subsequently, Hal tells the other privates about Desmond being a dissident in the most deigning way, bringing up he can't be relied upon in fight. In the night prior to bed, Smitty takes Desmond's book of scriptures and attempts to incite him into hitting him, yet Desmond doesn't respond and takes his book of scriptures back subsequent to saying please. The following day, Desmond goes through his clairvoyant assessment, making sense of he doesn't hear blessed voices. He's completely mindful that he's unique, however he's simply a firm devotee, not an insane individual. The specialist arrives at the resolution that Desmond is fine and doesn't fit the bill for segment 8, meaning he's legitimately permitted to function as a battle surgeon. He really does well in the wide range of various regions of his preparation. Glover actually needs to get rid of him, however, so he arranges Hal to keep Desmond in the encampment. From that point on, Desmond is stuck doing overwhelming work like cleaning latrines. Hal likewise kicks Desmond's bed over while illuminating everybody they will not get a free end of the week, inferring it's Desmond's shortcoming. Along these lines, when dusks, Desmond is whipped by different privates while Smitty asks why he's remaining. The following morning, Hal sees Desmond's beat-up state and genuinely encourages him to stop to his benefit, yet Desmond rejects. He likewise won't provide the sergeant with the names of the individuals who beat him up. As a matter of fact, he doesn't actually concede he was gone after and faults his injuries on a mishap. When the unit's preparation is finished, everybody is delivered on leave aside from Desmond. In his cell, Desmond winds up having a breakdown, however, he keeps cool-headed when Glover comes to see him. The skipper believes him should confess, so he can be delivered without charge, yet Desmond turns the proposal down since he's firm in his convictions. A while later, he gets a visit from Dorothy, who requests that he quit being prideful and pass the rifle preparing, which requires no killing. Desmond actually doesn't adjust his perspective. Soon thereafter, Desmond has bad dreams of the day he went up against his dad while he was pounding his mom and how horrendous it felt to remove his firearm. The following day, Tom appears at the post wearing his old uniform and every one of his decorations, requesting to address his previous chief, who is presently Brigadier General. At his court military, Desmond argues not blameworthy, however when he's going to be condemned, Tom powers his direction inside the court. He brings a letter from the Brigadier General reminding everybody that the right to be a non-combatant is safeguarded by the American Constitution, so the case gets excused be an outspoken opponent. In 1945, Desmond's 77th unit is shipped off Okinawa and conveyed to the Pacific Theater. When they show up they get hit with the dirty truth of many bodies being out of control in heaps, as though they were garbage, also, they're here to supplant them. The excess individuals from the 96th unit join Glover's group and Desmond will meet the main two different surgeons nearby. They additionally get to find out about Needle Edge, also called the Hacksaw Edge. Americans have taken a stab at climbing it multiple times, however the Japanese armed force has figured out how to lose them as a matter of course. The adversary intentionally targets the injured, so Desmond needs to remove his red cross to try not to stand out on him. He's likewise given another cap. A couple of days after the fact, the unit comes to Hacksaw Edge. Taking it is staggeringly significant in light of the fact that it will give them Okinawa, and having Okinawa implies having Japan. The American naval force releases an assault first to relax the Japanese armed force, and once the blasts and smoke have made sufficient disarray, Glover's unit moves up the edge to battle. The fight is totally horrendous, and it welcomes weighty misfortunes on the two sides. Anyway, Desmond won't ever get frightened and saves however many men as he can, including those that are generally left behind since they're thought about lost cases. There are a couple of times when he's nearly gotten by Japanese troopers, be that as it may, Smitty tries to kill them all and guard Desmond. Following some serious time battling, Dusks and the American unit chooses to dive in and camp to hold the spot they've taken. Desmond winds up bringing back several warriors prior to getting in an opening with Smitty, who treats him with significantly more regard now that he's seen him in real life, and both of them even joke with one another. At the point when Desmond nods off, he has a bad dream of the foe coming to their opening and killing them. Subsequent to awakening very nearly a breakdown, Desmond shares his fantasy with Smitty, who is stunned to know about a man that won't get a weapon even in his fantasies. It appears to be this is the ideal opportunity for Desmond to clear up where his revulsion for holding guns comes from. One evening, he at last became weary of his alcoholic dad thrashing his mom and went up against him. Desmond took the weapon from Tom's hands and pointed it at him, yet this main sources Tom to tumble to his knees crying, and Desmond felt like he had killed his dad in his heart. That day, he made his vow to God that he could at absolutely no point ever contact a weapon in the future. Consequently, Smitty shares that he won't ever meet his dad and his mom deserted him in a halfway house. The following morning, the Japanese armed force dispatches a counterattack, shocking the Americans when they scarcely got time to awaken. Owl orders everybody to fall back and the naval force comes in to help, however sadly, Smitty bites the dust before Desmond can take him to a more secure spot. The American armed force must choose the option to climb down the edge, yet Desmond doesn't go along with them. He can hear the shouts of men abandoned and has acknowledged that God's desire is for him to help them. Glover cancels the mounted guns to save more men's lives, and this leaves Howell, Desmond, and the wide range of various troopers left up there apparent and helpless against the Japanese. This actually isn't enough for Desmond to surrender. Jeeps are being shipped off get the fighters he's bringing down and Desmond continues onward, in any event, when the Japanese fighters are drawing near. A few minutes afterward, Desmond tracks down a hurt trooper and covers him under the soil prior to concealing himself with a dead body to try not to be seen. The stunt works and the Japanese stroll by without seeing them, so Desmond will save his kindred warrior all things considered. While Glover beseeches some hesitant higher up for fortifications, Desmond gets back to the front line subsequent to letting his most recent save fall down the edge. In any case, this time, he's seen by the adversary. Taking off brings him into a Japanese passage, where he tracks down a man that finished things for his honor. Desmond doesn't permit the obscurity to stop him and continues saving his kindred officers while imploring God and overlooking the dying of his hands to the place where he's bringing down a couple of Japanese fighters as well. The next morning, Glover is stunned to see lots of injured warriors were got in the late evening and he at long last gains from one of the protected men that the person everybody considered a defeatist has been doing this by itself. In the meantime, Desmond at last tracks down Howell along with another warrior, so in the wake of safeguarding the private, Desmond returns for his sergeant. A Japanese marksman sees him and shoots him, however fortunately his protective cap saves him from kicking the bucket. Since Howell actually has a couple of shots left, Desmond abandons reason to make the sharpshooter shoot, which makes him uncover his area what's more, have chance by the sergeant. Then, Desmond starts hauling him away as Howell takes shots at the Japanese warriors that are presently following them. When Howell is dropped down the edge, Desmond hops too. What's more, the Japanese warriors that look past the brink to complete him are shot by Glover and his men, who have approached help the last couple of survivors. Desmond is gotten with the highest regard also, returned to the clinic tents, where he unfortunately discovers that the other doctor didn't make it. Afterward, Glover comes to see Desmond and apologizes for having underrated him, conceding Desmond is the one to have done the most for the country. Glover additionally makes sense of they'll return to the edge tomorrow, which is Saturday. He'd very much want to have Desmond with them, yet he'll regard Desmond assuming that he likes to respect his time of rest. Desmond acknowledges to go, and the unit pauses for him to complete his requests prior to releasing the assault. The Americans take the Japanese by storm, they rapidly turn the fight in support of themselves. The little gathering of Japanese troopers comes forward with the acquiescence banner, however they're just imagining to be near and toss a lot of explosives at the Americans. These aggressors are shot quickly, however, Desmond actually gets injured when he redirects a projectile to save his group. Different privates put Desmond on a cot and rush to remove him from the battle, just halting to bring him back his book of scriptures when they understand he had coincidentally dropped it. The Americans actually win the fight also, assume control over Hacksaw Edge after the head of the Japanese unit closes things through the custom of seppuku to compensate for his errors. The genuine Desmond Doss conveyed 75 injured men to somewhere safe and secure on Hacksaw Edge.